She has helped countless residents access resources, support, and encouragement. Her lifelong commitment to helping others has made her a
All right, are you ready, clerk? Who was that? All right, I will call this meeting of Transportation and Mobility to order. Clerk, could you please call the roll? Present.
Jones, Bishop. Here. Davis, Gray. Here. Casey.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a question.
Thank you. If the assistant director, if you'd like to come forward. So the members refer to their tablets, there are two pieces that Port Control is bringing for introduction and passage in July. They are still unnumbered, but since we are here, I thought it'd be worthwhile for us to discuss them. So the first thing I'd like to discuss, if you open the legislative summary, which are on your tablets, I'll just read the executive summary. It's a little different than the title of an ordinance, but this is for a to-be numbered ordinance. This is the Department of Port Control requesting the authority to purchase by one or more standard purchase contracts up to 12 passenger boarding bridges, including but not limited to removal and disposal of existing passenger bridges and installation for Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. This is an anticipated cost of $26 million. Assistant Director, would you like to, well, first of all, welcome.
Thank you,
And I would just an opportunity to discuss these so that we can maybe lighten the load a little bit on July 13th.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. To the Chair and this body, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. The passenger boarding bridge project is a project to replace 12 passenger bridges, boarding bridges, 4 in Concourse A, 2 in Concourse B, and 6 in Concourse C. We are currently in the design process of a design-build contract with Aero Bridge for 9 passenger boarding bridges, 7 in Concourse A and 2 in Concourse C. This project will likewise be a design-build contract. It's also the second group of boarding bridges being replaced. The first group is currently in the design process. First group is gates A1, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 14, and also gates C2 and 4. The second group of bridges are gates A2, 6, 8, and 10, gates B3 and 7, and gates C 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. Again, as you mentioned, the estimated project cost is $26 million. Typically, it's about $2 million per bridge based on the average cost of the ones we've done in the past, and we did also include a 10% escalator factor. Bridges are being designed to be reused if new concourses are constructed, so that if there's a need to move them to support other gates, we can do that. And again, the funding sources are PFC and FAA.
Okay. Does anyone in the committee have questions about purchasing new passenger boarding bridges? Okay. Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director?
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the passenger boarding bridge is once you check your ticket at the gate, right? It's the walkway that you get to get into the plane, correct?
Through the Chair, to the council member, that's correct.
All right, and these boarding bridges are going to be equipped to handle the new terminal.
That's
right?
correct. That's correct. They are being built to be able to be utilized before, but also to be capped on for the TMD project.
And is a bridge, to the chairman, to the assistant director, is a bridge a bridge? Are there different ones?
No, actually, there are different styles as it relates to the type of plane that you are connecting to. Some of them are more akin to be able to connect to larger planes, and some even for a double passenger entry and exit if necessary. So there are some similarities as far as design, but there are some nuances to them that can make them a little different per usage.
All right, and then last question, Mr. Chairman, the Assistant Director. All the passenger bridges are owned by Cleveland Hopkins?
That I would have to confirm, but I do believe so.
Okay, and then, but the FAA's
funding
them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on passenger bridges? Councilman Polensek.
Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, I had a question. I guess you want to refer to as the concourse. What is the concourse that has been abandoned or empty?
To the council member through the chair, that is concourse D.
D?
D.
Is there anything in there at all?
There's still a lot of some older equipment and things that were abandoned, but as far as I know, the last time I was in there, it's pretty much pillaged.
So, but we're still providing utilities in there, correct?
That is correct.
And we have to maintain it.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that still
I
under-
do believe that's coming up soon as it relates to that United project, but I'm not too familiar with it.
Was that, Mr. Chairman, to Frank, was that Continental? Was that a Continental?
I believe that was the hub there, or United, one of
But
those.
so they still paying us for that Concourse D?
That would be a question maybe for the revenue folk. I'm over the
Okay, well,
operations, so
I'll
I'm
make
not.
that request through the chair if you could provide that to us.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you very much.
I can get that to you before the end of the day.
Yeah, and I am pretty confident that the lease, United inherited the Continental lease for D, they are still paying, so it's empty, but it's not cost. That last I knew, that was the arrangement. But if we could make sure to make a note to confirm that, that would be useful. Any other questions on passenger boarding bridges? Councilman Jones, then Councilman Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The estimated cost right now would be $26 million, is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair to the council member, yes, that's correct.
All right. And Mr. Chairman, just to make sure I'm on the same page, so this is just for the scope of services for replacing the bridges you have right now, and these bridges have been over 30 years old?
Through the chair to the council member, yes, at least 30
Okay.
years.
And so then, how many bridges, if I may ask, do we have total for the airport?
I'm not exactly sure of the count because I think we do have a couple more than we have for gates, for a spare and spare parts. But I can get that number for you to confirm.
No worries. Mr. Chairman, I have no uneasiness, and the $26 million is coming from the federal government, correct?
That's correct,
All right.
and PFC
Okay.
or passenger facility charges.
And how did it come about? Just that you saw a need and you went to the airport, or was this a part of a grant system?
A little bit of both. One of the things that really comes to account is the passenger experience can really be negatively influenced when passenger boarding bridges are very hot and don't have the circulation, or situations where some of them may leak in the rain and things like that, where people are getting on the planes. So we wanted to really make sure that we are working on not waiting until the TMDP project, but making sure that we increase passenger care before that happens.
I see. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councilman Bishop.
I love that jacket, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, so to the Director, we bought a few bridges a few years back through this committee. I remember we had a couple bridges a couple years back. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is the second phase of those replacements. We're still in the process of installing and finishing up that design build. Now this would be the second phase of those.
So basically the airlines picks up the cost of the bridges, or you said it was a transportation board or something?
Correct. FAA and also PFC funds support these.
Okay, so the dollar amount we see here in the executive summary is not what the city will have to pay. Is that correct?
That's
Mr. Chair?
correct. This is not a charge to the city.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, this will not go forward, Mr. Chairman, correct? This is not going forward today, right?
No, this is being introduced in July. I figured since they are anticipating it coming, I figured we could discuss it today, just since we're a meeting. But there is nothing that we are not voting on this today for recommendation.
And so did you say, through the chairman, did you say the bridges cost about $2 million each?
That's correct. Through the chair, I'm sorry. To the council member, yes, that's correct. About approximately $2 million.
Okay. All right, if you can just get us the amount of bridges that we have, or the amount of bridges that we need, and then just to give us the amount of bridges that we are looking to replace over the next couple years. Okay.
Through
All right,
the chair,
thank you, Mr.
thank
Chairman.
you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, thank you. Director?
Assistant Director.
Assistant Director,
Yes,
yes. Just a question about the background proposed. It says here that by one or more standard purchase contracts, 12 passenger boarding bridges, including but not limited to installation, removal, and disposal, per se. So when the installation process will start, how will that work with removing the passenger boarding bridges as we go into the airport? You talking about that bridge when you scan your ticket, and that's that little bridge you go into the plane? Is that the one you're talking about?
Through the chair to the council member, yes, that is, those are the bridges that we are discussing. And one of the things that's worded that way so that if there's opportunities for us to save funds by doing some of the work internally, that way we can do those and not have an issue with the actual contract. For example, if the removal or some of those ancillary portions of the project, again, if we can do some things in-house, we're going to try to do those to keep the costs reasonable.
Okay, interesting. And Chair to the Assistant Director, since it says 12 passenger boarding bridges, do you have any idea how that per bridge going to be removed or disposed at that particular time during the service of people traveling? Chair to the Assistant Director.
Through the chair to the council member, yes, what will be done as we go through this design build project, they will also take a look at accommodating all of the airlines as far as scheduling and things of that sort to make sure that it's seamless and it doesn't interrupt passenger travel. But at the same time, we're going to push to make sure that we do things in a safe manner, because that's going to be the real key, is making sure to do those things in a safe manner to make sure that everything is safe and done in a way that it doesn't impact traffic negatively.
Okay, all right. And one last question. You probably even answered this already. What is the time frame? You know, when would this start? Chair to the Assistant Director.
Through the chair to the council member, the project will start fairly quickly as it relates to the design, but it's a little early to say when actual installation will come into play, because of course winter and those things, the construction season also play a part in those decisions and planning.
All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Hearing no other questions, I have heard tales of deplanings being delayed due to problems with jet bridges, so I think it is in everyone's interest to make sure that we're not relying on 30-year-old bridges. Again, this has not been introduced yet, so we are just discussing this today. We will vote formally on it in July. I'm going to move on to another piece that is also being introduced in July. The executive summary is on your tablet. This is the Department of Port Control requesting authority to enter into one or more requirement contracts with Siemens Industry, Inc. for labor and materials necessary to maintain, repair, upgrade, and expand the existing Apogee building automation system for a period of 1 year with 3 one-year options for renewal, exercisable by the Director of Port Control. Assistant Director, if you could remind the committee, as is protocol, what an Apogee building automation system is.
Thank you. Through the chair to the council members, this scope of work, the contract will provide software, labor, and the materials necessary to maintain, repair, upgrade, and expand the existing building automation system for the operation of the Department of Port Control. In layman's terms, what these systems are the alarms and automation systems to let building maintenance know when there's an issue throughout the campus, especially in the concourses. For example, if there is a smoke alarm, these are the alarms that would go to our fire staff, or also a flood, or things of that sort, where we will know where those things are and how to dispatch to respond to those things. Without that automation, it becomes a manual process to where we're really running around trying to find things. For example, if there's a leak or something throughout the building, we're trying to manually find those things. So this automation system, while somewhat proprietary is our approach to make sure that we can maintain the facility with when there are issues, but also maintain the facility to mitigate as much damage as possible when anything does happen. Right now, we are in flux a little bit to the point where we get a lot of false alarms and things of that sort, and we want to make sure that we manage this system now so that we can decrease false alarms and call-outs and things of that sort that don't amount to an actual issue. I'll give a great example is vaping in the restrooms has become a really big issue, but it causes us to, when those alarms go off, it causes a whole ARF dispatch run, which means that folk are getting in trucks, getting suited up, coming to fight a fire, only to find out that it was just someone vaping in the restroom. So we're working to really get those systems automated. We've had a lot of issues, especially in the winter with floods or pipes bursting and things of that sort, and trying to find those locations when they don't report back correctly. A lot of those damages tend to exasperate, and we want to really maintain these systems going forward.
Thank you. I have been present when someone has set off the fire alarm for vaping in the bathroom. Stop doing that, people. This isn't middle school. Stop smoking in the bathroom. Are there any questions on the Apogee building automation system? Councilman Casey.
That's why you should have a smoking room in the terminal, right?
I'll take that back.
Yeah, honest to God. For those who are nicotine affected, there's nothing worse than having a 3-hour layover and not being able to get your fix on. And I'd rather see a smoking room than ARPA or ARP. Something, right?
Through the chair to the council member, that is something across the country. There are areas that do monetize those items. And
I've been to airports where they do have them, right? Yeah. Open up Concourse D, right? Mr. Chairman, the Assistant Director, what's the name of this company?
the company that we are working with is Siemens.
All right, and where are they located?
I do believe they are a Ohio-based company. I can get that information for you.
So you don't know where they're located? Are they a Cleveland company?
I do believe they are an Ohio company. I'm not exactly sure if they're in Cleveland proper.
So that would make them a Cleveland, Ohio company, though. I mean, if you're Ohio, you're.
Through
All
the
right.
chair to the council member, whatever you say.
How long, Mr. Chairman of the Assistant Director, how long have they've been contracting with Port Control?
Through the chair to the council member, for several years, it's my understanding. However, we introduced this contract this way so that because we do expect at some point to lessen our need for them once we get certain things in place, so that we didn't want to tie ourselves to this company for an unnecessarily long time. That's why it's set up in this manner.
And Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, is this a proprietary contract? Is this their equipment?
Through the chair, no, it is not their equipment, but it is somewhat proprietary because some of our systems are legacy and older and not supported by some of the new things. And again, that's why we're kind of going at it this way to maintain while we move forward, but also look at other options as we move closer to the TMDP.
All right, and Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, my final question is, why didn't we go out for RFP on this?
Through the chair to the council member, this was chosen to go this route because of the proprietary issues that we do face right now, but our goal is in the future as we get better at this to go out for RFP. That's why it's with the 1-year renewals.
Right, but Mr. Chairman to the Mr. Chairman to the Assistant Director, if this equipment is not proprietary, right? It's not theirs. It's just old. We won't know if another company can handle it if we don't go out for RFP, correct?
Through the chair, it's my understanding that this was cycled before in the past, and why we came to this conclusion because of RFPs that went out in the past and the responses from them.
When was the last time we went out for RFP?
I can get that information, but I do believe 2 years ago.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councilman Jones.
Just on that same line of questions, Mr. Chairman, what are we talking about less the equipment that is concerning? Because you're doing a number of things here, correct?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
With this scope of services we have in front of us, right? So you're talking about they're going to provide software, labor, materials necessary to maintain, repair, upgrade, and expand the existing building automation system. So is it the automated system that we're talking about that is considered proprietary?
Through the chair, not quite. What it is some of those pieces are legacy, especially considering HVAC, lighting, plumbing, all those types of systems. They're all different, so they all have different nuances to them. For us to be able to maintain in-house, we need that support from this service. But again, it's our goal to continue to hone in on those things as we move forward with the TMDP to make sure that we are open to not only other agencies, but also open to be able to keep up with technology and automation systems as they continue to mature.
And then, just, and again, on that same line of questioning too, is because one of the things that's really important to me sitting here is that we give out a lot of work, a lot of resources. We give out millions and billions of dollars to companies and corporations that do business with us here at the airport. And one of the things sitting here in years past was lobbying to make sure that, when we are giving out these contracts, that we're looking at the citizens who live in the city of Cleveland. Businesses that are in the city of Cleveland and businesses that do business with the city, we should be, if they qualify, we should be rewarding them. One of the things I think is really significantly and important is we need to put our money where our people live. So if they live in the city of Cleveland, their business is in the city of Cleveland, we should be supporting that. And it would be nice to know exactly where this organization, where they are. So if you could send that to us, that'd be great.
And through the chair, to your very point, one of the things that we also work on that very same lines is as we move forward with these types of projects and things of that sort, we look to possibly onboard some of those staff that actually have been working on our systems longer term, especially when they are city residents and things of that sort, to develop that relationship and keep maintaining it throughout the legacy of those pieces of equipment or items throughout the airport.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the Director.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, hi, thank you, Chair. This ordinance, as Chair spoke, is to be determined as, with a number or this is just a preliminary of questions.
Correct. So since it hasn't been introduced yet, it hasn't been assigned a number yet, but the anticipation is that it will be introduced in July and that it could be up for passage.
Okay.
So I wanted to discuss it today since we're meeting, since committee of the whole becomes so elongated, I figured this would be an efficient use of time to maybe make that time shorter.
Just a smart choice.
Yeah.
So,
We
Chair,
appreciate
to the
that, sir.
Assistant Director, I just have a couple questions. This new company is pronounced Siemens,
That's correct.
okay? Do they have a sub-company in Cleveland? Because I just Googled, and they are located in Georgia, Alpha Grady, Georgia. So do they have a sub-company here in Cleveland as partner for the Port Control to select this company due to the service that they can provide for what this ordinance is requiring?
Through the chair
to the Assistant Director.
Thank you for that. Through the chair to the council member, what they do is they have different locations throughout the country that services different regions. Their home office is, I think you mentioned in Georgia, but they have on-site, for example, most of the areas or especially airports that they service, they actually have a group that actually are on the ground in that area. So, for example, with Siemens right now, we can call them, and they are actually contracted to be on site within 24 hours or less. So they actually have staff on site. They're not an actual sub, but they are actually part of the company that has locations all across the country that service the areas that they are contracted with.
Okay, thank you for that. So are they going to be a new company, or Porter-Troll have always worked with this industry?
Through the chair to the council member, this has been a relationship that has gone on for a couple of years successfully. But again, we are not trying to tie ourselves to one vendor. So that's why we do this as the 1-year renewals, so that we are always able to be nimble enough to find the best and the brightest for our port control.
Okay, all right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, council member.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any other questions? All right, hearing none, there's no action to take today. This will be up for introduction and passage in July. Thank you for your time, Assistant Director. With that, we will turn over to the real, thank you. Councilman Jones, do you mind passing me that ordinance? Thank you. We will turn over, if the team wants to assemble. This is a piece that we discussed and was held at our Committee of the Whole earlier this month, and recognizing the complexities associated with the settlement agreement between the cities of Brook Park and Cleveland that dates back over nearly 25 years. I felt it would be useful to have a more in-depth conversation about it today within the committee. Admittedly, since a lot of this involves the ward that I represent, I probably live and breathe it more than others just from the day-to-day workflow. So I appreciate everybody coming today for a summer committee meeting. I will read the ordinance in, and then we can have the team introduce themselves. But this is Ordinance 664, 2026, as amended by Mayor Bibb, an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the directors of law and port control to enter into a First Amendment to settlement agreement between the cities of Brook Park and Cleveland relating to the International Exposition Center and the Emerald Park Joint Economic Development Zone, and establishing a special revenue fund. Director. Or chief.
Great, thank you. I will
Whomever.
refer to our Chief of Development.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman, for having this hearing and allowing us to provide a little bit more color on what I know is a complicated and consequential issue. Joined here today by Joe Rose Bordeaux-Small, our Director of the Department of Development, Mark Griffin, our Chief Legal Officer, Jennifer Scheel, who is the Executive for Business Attraction for the City of Cleveland, and Scott Carr with the airport. I know we have kind of gone through this before, but spent some time working with your policy team over the course of time, which I believe got you a one-pager on this, and I think also added a couple of slides to this presentation because I know it can get pretty deep. But we've also seen it before, so I'm going to go through it a little bit quickly. I know Ms. Scheel has to leave at 10:50. For a meeting that she cannot avoid, and I think it is very important that you hear from her directly on how she views the IX Center as an asset. So we can always come back to some of this stuff.
Would it be useful to start with that, or is it out of order?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
We can kind of come back to this, but so I think for that purposes, as we look at the IX Center, which we talked a lot about, the building itself, right, and this asset that we acquired in this deal at 2.2 million square feet, with very high ceiling heights, the 16-foot thick concrete floors, the overhead bridge cranes, right? This is literally a building that used to make B-29 bombers and tanks, built for heavy industry with a 25 megawatt substation attached to it. And Ms. Scheel has spent quite a bit of time talking to site selectors, potential companies that looked at it, and I think it is important to hear from her on what she is hearing when she talks to those people and why we think this is such a unique asset for the city.
Thank you. So I'll just start with the features of the building. This is big and heavy and a lot of square footage, and what that means is that we have an advanced manufacturing facility that's ready to go. That is very, very It's a huge competitive advantage, one, because right now we've got a lot of venture capital that is going into advanced manufacturing, and they need to move quickly, and people are trying to produce as quickly as possible. So one, it's the fact that it's ready to go. Two, the fact that it's built with so much of this infrastructure means that we can have those CNC machines, but also we can make big subsystems, which we as a city don't make a lot of, right? We make a lot of components. We might make some big, turbine gas chambers, but we don't make a lot of subsystems. We make all the components that go into all of those things. Some of the businesses that I've been talking to can use this right away and plug into our supply chain right away. It's also the two companies that I've talked to that are interested in this building could use the supply chain and our workforce as is. We have the workforce, we have the supply chain to support them. This building kept us in the running for one of the most innovative companies in the United States, as rated by Fortune. It's one of 2 in our state, and it's one of 7 in a tri-state area that's ready to go with this infrastructure. Overhead bridge cranes are incredibly important, I'm sure all of you know, in order to move things along the assembly line that are very heavy, that offloads that need in the workforce. The thick concrete floors, again, means that we can have heavy machineries like a CNC machine in that building. And the truck docks means that we can deliver those and use that infrastructure that we have, the logistical infrastructure, right away. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Given the time sensitivity she has, I'll entertain if anyone has, we'll keep it to 5 minutes since it's just narrowly about the IX Center, but are there any questions the committee has?
Yes.
Specific to what we just heard from Ms. Shields? Councilman Jones and Councilman Polensek.
Yes, I just want to qualify real quick. I'm sorry, who are you? And give me some background, please. Thank
Through
you.
the council chair to the council member, I'm Jennifer Scheel. I'm the Executive Attraction Officer for the City of Cleveland. So I joined about 7 months ago in October. And my entire position is meant to look at attracting businesses from outside of Ohio to Cleveland. So I'm not into the poaching game, though, of course, if Columbus wants to give something up, I'll certainly take it. But we are focused on, or I am focused on 4 core industries: biotech, advanced manufacturing. Underneath that, we've got polymers and advanced manufacturing with aerospace and defense contracts. This is prime for that. And then also food and beverage manufacturing. This is not prime for that.
So you talked about, very briefly, you stated there's 1 or 2 businesses that would be interested in that.
That's correct.
We sat here at the table, we've had discussions to quite some length about the deal that was in front of us. And when I had to kind of like moving through it to try to get an idea of what projections, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, and it's what I asked Mr. Chairman was, if we make this deal, what is our financial projection? So do we have that? I know I requested that. And the last time we talked, I had to sit here and try to like go through all of it to try to make some sense of what was being said. So if this happens the way this happens, what are the real financial benefits for the city of Cleveland in your estimations?
Yeah, through the chair to the council member, this is the one that we currently have that we've beaten out 7 other states for, and now are in direct competition with only 1 other city. This is for a $72 million payroll, and that is 700 jobs. And these are really good jobs. I've had the pleasure of visiting the company and seeing the diversity on the floor, both in culture and race and sex, and they want to include more diversity on the floor. They also are into local hiring, local promotion through their workforce. So the financial benefit is, and they would not even take up half of this facility. The other company that I was talking to that was also on the Fortune Most Innovative Companies was another similarly positioned, high-paying job. Unfortunately, they were a manufacturer in the aerospace world, so that proximity to NASA Glenn meant a lot to them. Because one of the things that Cleveland has a competitive advantage in is our ability to innovate and produce at the same place. So and that's throughout Cleveland. So that is critical in advanced manufacturing because we don't have the dispersion of the innovation knowledge of the actual advanced manufacturing process. Those are critical to advanced manufacturing, is the actual process with which we manufacture. So without having to disperse that across the United States, we have a competitive advantage in that. And the IX for the company that is no longer in the running, that was actually a huge competitive advantage. For the one that's in front of us now, $72 million payroll is a very conservative estimate. And this doesn't include some of the projections that we've recently discussed.
So how will that benefit the city of Cleveland
The payroll tax.
financially?
Yeah, the payroll tax.
What are the numbers?
So at 2.5% of $72 million,
1.8.
thank you, per year.
So the city of Cleveland will get $1.8 million a year with this
Yes.
particular deal.
Yes, correct.
And then there's a possibility for half of the NASA piece to be given to another business potentially.
Oh, that other business, unfortunately, we lost out. There are some cities that are able to just write checks to buy companies. We're not in that position, so unfortunately, we lost that company. But that's, so you're going to win some and lose some.
Right, but we do have enough space
We
to
do.
potentially add another.
Correct. We
in
have
that
more than
location.
enough space to add another. They only, that company, and they had another 500 jobs, only needed 500,000 square feet, and this is 2.2 million.
Okay, so when will the city ideally would start seeing a return on this deal here?
On the deal in front of us, we're hoping that we would start to see the return on investment next summer, so 2027 in the summer.
And do we have a projection of what that would be?
That would start at about I think it would be about 750,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in our first year, we're looking at about $750,000.
Yeah, very rough estimate of like what their projections are for the initial jobs.
I see. And then I'll reserve, because I know that she has to leave. I'll end my questions here, and then I'll ask questions to the director a little bit more about the testimony here.
Okay.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, and thank you. As I kick it over to Councilman Polensek and then Councilman Casey, I want to clarify the $1.8 million would be 2.5% of the payroll. That is assuming this legislation were to pass. If this legislation were not to pass and this company were still to come in, which would become a challenge, I think, to attract them, and I'd love for you all to get into that.
Yeah.
But even if that were to occur, we would only get 720,000 of it because the balance of that, basically $1 million, would be going to Brook Park under the current settlement agreement with the city of Brook Park related to the economics of the IX Center. So that's what we're trying to untangle. Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the administration, to Ms. Shield. Ms. Shield, you work in the Economic Development Department?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware of the previous legislation that came before us pertaining to the IX Center,
Yes.
where nobody would tell us who was going in there? It was like top secret, CIA. Nobody would tell us what was going in there. And so I've become very jaded on this project. I've become very skeptical, and I've become very inquisitive as to who's negotiating on our behalf and negotiating with who. So the previous deal, we were told there was going to be this big business going in there, creating all these jobs, never materialized. And then the whole issue with the exhibition space being lost, which had been there since, 1985, I believe, or so, around that period of time. So, of the 2.2 million square feet, how much of that is usable space in the building?
Through the council chair to the council member, this is all usable.
Okay, so you're telling us now that somebody is looking at coming in there. We don't know who. Again, I have no idea who. And they're going to utilize the entire 2.2 million square feet.
No, it would be just a portion of it.
Okay, just a portion of but you don't know how much.
I do.
Okay, you do.
But yes, it would be 500,000 square feet to start.
500,000 square feet to start.
Yes.
And the remaining 1.5 would be utilized for what?
We would continue to look for additional manufacturing businesses.
Okay. And you're alleging at this table, you said 700 jobs,
Yes.
but you can't tell us who.
So that is a prerequisite to working with the international site selectors who we want to maintain a relationship with because they are hired to do this.
Okay. So we own the building, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Who, for the public consumption, who has the lease on the building?
The public consumption is ICP and IRG.
So who's ever coming in the building will lease from them
Correct.
for a set number of period of years. The lease that they have on the building runs for how long?
Currently for 13 more years.
13 more years. If someone can educate me, the legislation, the previous legislation was before us. Was that to extend the lease? Was that?
Yes. That legislation was to extend the lease to basically create negotiating power for that other potential end user to
never
try
happened.
almost as a workaround to what we're trying to resolve here. Like this would be the more permanent fix. I believe that authorization was given to extend the lease, but the lease was never extended. Is that correct to the administration?
To the chair, that is accurate.
So the lease expires in 13 years?
Correct.
Okay. And I'd like to see a copy of that, to confirm the lease termination is in 13 years. So you're indicating, you're presenting to us this portion of the deal that will be before this committee and ultimately the council, that based on your comments and your testimony today at the table, that you believe that this is a good deal, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when are we to learn as to who is going in there?
I can't wait to tell you.
can't tell
But
me.
unfortunately, I said I can't wait to tell you.
Okay, you should
When
be
they make their
working for the
choice.
CIA. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not with the CIA. I'm under NDA with the site selector, and we want to maintain that relationship with all these site selectors because they use an objective analysis framework to get all these cities, working against each other and presenting the data in a standardized format.
Yeah.
If we breach that NDA, they won't want to work with us anymore.
Okay. And and I've been around here long enough to understand that there's some things you just have to keep tight-fisted until the 11th hour. But this is like the bride has been taken to the altar, and then the groom doesn't show up. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have heard a lot of promises over the years about the IX Center, and nothing's materialized. So you have to understand some of our skepticism here.
Yeah.
And I've been here a long time, and I've heard a lot of comments about the IX Center and promises, and it has not materialized. So I'll leave it at that point, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Ms. Shields has 7 minutes till departure. Councilman Casey.
I'll be quick. Mr. Chairman and Ms. Shields, do you have a title?
Executive Attraction Officer.
All right. Do we currently today have anything written to bring a company into the IX Center?
No LOU or LOI
Okay.
is signed.
So this is all just potential, maybe pie in the sky, hopefully, right? There's nothing concrete that we have any business moving into? Especially the magnitude that you described, we have nothing in paper written down saying anybody's moving into the IX Center.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I would just add that the amount of attention, though, that we've gotten from the IX when we showed it as a manufacturing facility was immense. And I had, we are one of two in competition for this one business, and I cannot promise that we won't lose. If we can't write checks just to make things free for companies.
No, I get it, but
Yeah.
my question was, as of today,
As
as
of
it
today,
stands
correct.
today, there's no difference in the IX Center today than there is tomorrow, because we don't have any pen to paper saying that we have any company moving in, especially one that you described with that type of potential in it, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Shields? All right, thank you very much for coming. You're welcome to stay for 6 more minutes. But I think that was a good cue up to speak to, and I say this as a former site selector, I see a lot of value in the IX Center It is a very unique facility, and there's going to be an end user at some point who they've been dreaming of this. This is their unicorn. But right now, I am of the opinion that our ability to close the deal is hindered by the economics dating back to 2001 under the assumption of there being a third runway. So if we could go back to the beginning of the presentation, I'll turn it back to you, Chief McNair, to kind of give us the exact substance of what this ordinance would do, understanding that it could benefit a potential end user in the IX Center that's different from how it's been operating for my entire lifetime plus 2 years.
Thank you, Chairman. And by the way, I want to say that I also appreciate that line of questioning, particularly Mr. Casey's. I think as we said at the last committee hearing on this, right, we view this as a good deal regardless of the tenant. We are not doing this for a singular tenant. We are doing this to untangle an asset that otherwise we can't really utilize to its fullest potential as it sits there. And I also want to say that I appreciate Councilman Polensic's comment on the previous legislation that was passed to enable us to negotiate a lease extension. I think the more that I looked at that, the reality is that I wouldn't enter into a lease extension for this facility unless this legislation passes to untangle these assets for a variety of reasons. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. Because as Councilman Polensic says, we have to stop doing bad deals, right? And though I know, and this kind of gets to our first thing on the way this was all set up, I am not blaming anyone for what they were looking at in the early 1990s when everyone felt this was the absolute best thing to do, to radically change how air transportation worked in our region that they really felt was going to move our economy forward, but it didn't happen. And because of that, it's been a very bad deal, right? And so we are now looking at how and the reality is because of it, and you'll see as we go through here, Brook Park has certain rights here. So we don't have the ability to just cut Brook Park out, right? And so what we're doing is we are getting rid of a very bad deal for the city of Cleveland and striking what I think is a fair deal for both municipalities that allows us to move forward. So again, just as a refresher on this, if you look at the history on this, goes back to the early 1990s when Cleveland Hopkins went to expand and create new runways that was sitting there, and that led to a variety of lawsuits that went through there. In 1999, the city of Cleveland acquired the IX Center while it was still in the city of Brook Park, right? That led to a variety of eminent domain lawsuits and various things, all of which led to the 2000 runway settlement agreement, which is what we are here amending today. And then, again, I think this was signed in August of 2001. I think we all remember what happened in September of 2001 when 2 planes flew into the World Trade Center in New York City. That also radically changed air travel. I think that radically changed the future of the airport. And then we know in 2008-ish, 2007, 2008, the United Continental merger happened. And that need for the third runway disappeared. And so we were left with the IX Center, a series of lawsuits to kind of get us to today. If you look at the settlement details, and we will go, this was one of the things that was asked, we will go through each one of these properties in a little more detail so we can provide some clarity. But if you look at these details, what happened was we transferred that area in purple where NASA Glenn Research Center is. That land was in the city of Cleveland. We transferred it to Brook Park. We took that area in pink, the Emerald Corporate Parkway, which was in the city of Cleveland. We were collecting whole revenues on, and we created a joint economic development zone, which splits both property and income taxes 50-50 between Brook Park and Cleveland. We agreed to acquire and demolish residential properties, that area in green, that are still in Brook Park, right, for a runway protection zone. And then we received the IX Center and the lands that surround it that was previously in the city of Brook Park. So it was almost like a land swap for NASA Glenn and the land around IX. But the 2001 tax rights for Brook Park, right, that level that Brook Park was at in 2001, they got to keep all of those. And we'll go into detail about that. right? So then as we fast forward today, this settlement agreement, again, we're going to go through these in more detail, but what this will do, this will abolish that area in pink, the Emerald Park JED, so we will now collect all the revenues that come out of there. Currently, last tax year, $610,000 was in total for that area. So $305,000, give or take, went to the city of Cleveland. $305,000, give or take, went to Brook Park. There's also about 40 acres of developable land around the Emerald Corporate Parkway that we can hopefully unlock. It abolishes all the tax sharing at the IX Center, right? And we'll go through in detail what that tax sharing looks like. But right now there are complicated splits that go to Brook Park in Cleveland. All revenues from the IX Center will now start to come to Cleveland, right? We'll walk through the numbers of that more in following slides. There's about 47 acres of developable land adjacent to the IX Center that this would again unlock. This was the most important part to me. Right now, that deal goes into perpetuity, forever, right? The only other way outside of you passing this legislation to end that agreement would be for us to honor our obligation in the settlement agreement and tear the IX Center to the ground. We have investigated the costs of tearing down the IX Center. They're significant. It's $30 to $35 million. We would also enable to do that. We would have to buy out our master lessee from the lease. We've not began those conversations, but they have 13 years of term. I'm assuming that would be very expensive. And then we would have to build a new facility on there, right? That's a really expensive way to get out of this. So it ends the perpetuity of this. It also ends Brook Park, kind of getting portions of revenues. I think this was brought up at the last meeting. I agree. This is like we're getting a divorce. And how do we do that amicably in a way that works for everyone? It ends those 9 years of litigation. What does Brook Park get out of this? There is a one-time $2 million settlement payment out of this. It dismisses the litigation that is at the table, which is good for both sides. They will receive a $650,000 annual payment in lieu of taxes for the next 33 years. I think that was pointed out by Councilman Polensek. That's about $21.4 million in total, if you look at that in aggregate, which again would be slightly less than what it would be to actually demolish the facility, let alone the other costs. And then they want the 34 acres. They would get the 34 acres that the city of Cleveland has acquired in Brook Park back. And they would be rezoned to their original thing. We'll talk about the FAA in a minute. But want to get into each one of these areas in a little bit more detail to hopefully simplify some of this. So the first one is that area that is the Emerald Corporate Park. So again, this is land that is wholly within the city of Cleveland corporate limits. It's approximately 75 acres in total. 40 acres of that, roughly, is undeveloped, and we would have the ability to, again, develop it. If you look at what's in there, there is Odie, which is a great Cleveland company, does plumbing supplies. They're national, that sits in there. There are a couple of hotels, including a Hilton Garden Inn, Grayton Road Tavern, great restaurant. So there are a variety of, we'll say a variety of different types of tenants in there. This area is currently in a joint economic development zone agreement, right? So it's a 50-50 split of all income and property taxes in here. As you can see, last tax year we collected just over $610,000. That went evenly both ways to each city. This was interesting, we looked at. So there's about 35 acres that are developed. If you think about the types of tenants in there, it comes down to about $17,500 per developed acre in terms of tax revenues coming into the city of Cleveland. So we're abolishing the JEDs, right? We now collect all revenues within here. If we developed those remaining 40 acres and received similar revenues from those diversity of tenants, that would translate to about $700,000 annually in new revenues and income and property taxes for the city of Cleveland, right? That in and of itself could pay to kind of eliminate the payment that we have. But again, at the bare minimum, we're already paying Brook Park about $300,000 a year towards that. That's money that could, quote unquote, go to the payment in lieu of taxes for them. If you look at the IX Center and the surrounding lands there, again, that is about 165 acres of total land. There is about 47 acres of that, which is the area immediately to the west, is developable, has been undeveloped in this weird tax sharing arrangement. There is that existing asset that we just talked about, a 2.2 million square foot building. There is the very strange, again, Brook Park's tax rates were all frozen in time. Yes, sir.
Can you just briefly clarify? We can see the frame of the building. The 47 acres is that area to basically the left of the wording, correct?
Yeah, okay.
Like the
Yes,
existing
correct.
parking lot and to the left?
Correct. Correct. It is to the left. If you can see the shadow of the building, basically under Center and Urtis, to the left of that, it is a portion of that parking lot and the land that is adjacent to it. And again, really unique property. This is obviously directly connected to the airfield. It is adjacent to NASA Glenn. I think that is one of the reasons that aerospace type companies are deeply interested in this thing. And so, again, if we can unlock those properties, I think that could be used for airport expansion type activities. There are a lot of possibilities what might happen there. Again, Brook Park tax rates were frozen in time in 2001. So the first 1.5% of all income taxes, as it stands today, that go on there, go to the city of Brook Park. For a while, we were receiving no income taxes here. When we passed the income tax increase in 2016, right? Like now that we're at a 2.5% rate, we collect that back 1% of income taxes on there. Property taxes, it's really based on the millage that Brook Park had at that moment in time. That equates to roughly, they get the first 36.75% of property taxes go on there today. Just because we need to make it more complicated, this is actually in the Cleveland Berea tax district, so the schools portion actually goes to Berea that's on here. Admissions taxes. So Brook Park's admissions tax rate was 3% in 2001, so they get the first 3% of admissions taxes. The City of Cleveland admission tax rate is 8%, right? So we get that second 5% that comes in there. Very important to note, all parking revenues, right? So not just parking taxes, parking revenues generated here as it stands today all go to the city of Brook Park. If you want to look at like what that means in real numbers, the IX Center produced about $475,000 in total revenues on that complicated formula in 2024. That is, of course, ICP IRG, their affiliate that operates that, has not been operating as many trade shows, so that revenue has gone down. So we also showed what that looked like at peak, where about $1 million was raised in total revenues for the entire property. That was in 2018. And you can see how that kind of split goes. And so in the New Deal, we would abolish all tax sharing, right? All revenues would come into the city of Cleveland, right? And this is, again, constant reminder that the IX Center, while owned by the city of Cleveland, has a master lease on it that extends for a period of 13 more years, that is operated by an affiliate of ICP Industrial Commercial Properties and IRG, I believe, Industrial Realty Group, right? And that runs for approximately 13 more years. We have no say in who they lease this building to, right? I know that there have been a lot of conversations out there around the trade shows. I do just want to make it clear that we have no say whether or not they lease this building or a portion of this building to trade shows or not. We have had conversations with that group, and we have told them, look, if you only bring us trade shows, the odds of us giving you a lease extension on it is relatively limited because that doesn't maximize the value of the building to the city of Cleveland. But they operate it for 13 more years. They can do that if they so choose. They could operate trade shows and also bring an industrial tenant that may necessitate a need for a lease extension, and we can have that conversation. But I think it's important to note that is not our decision at the moment, and that is the lease that we inherited that stands today. So this is one of the more interesting areas, and I will let Chief Griffin and Mr. Carr chime in on this a little bit. So the Brook Park Residential Acquisition Program land. This is land that still exists in the city of Brook Park. But the city of Cleveland to date, because we were going to acquire all this for a runway protection zone that never happened. So we ended up, yes, sir.
But before we get into this area, Councilman Jones has a clarifying
Yeah.
question on the operator of the IX
Yes.
Center. So before we get too
Yes.
far ahead of it, if you could just ask that
Yes.
question for clarity, and we'll move on.
Mr. Chairman, thank you to the director. You broke down basically if the deal goes through, the resources that would now come back to us would be everything, pretty much.
Yes, sir.
With the only issue here is that there's already an agreement in place for 13 more additional years.
Yes.
How does that impact, or does it have any impact on any of your earlier statements in terms of the income taxes, the property taxes, the mission taxes, the parking revenues that would be all brought over to us? And now, what it sounded like to me, and I just want to make sure I'm clear
Yeah.
on this, is that this deal or this agreement that has been put in place for 13 years, that the only thing that could potentially impact is the parking. Is that what I'm hearing? Will it impact anything else?
No, so it would not, them being the master leaseholder has no impact on the deal that we make, right? And this is why I say to me, we are untangling the asset. Now, the reality is that group controls who they lease to that's in there. Now, their whole world of business, right? They own and operate lots of industrial buildings, not just in Northeast Ohio, but beyond. This is what they do. Their interest is in attracting high quality manufacturing tenants. We are aligned in that. We are working with them on the attraction of some of these types of tenants, right? But like I will say, when we think about the deal, and I know I've had this conversation with several of you, if they so choose to lease to trade shows in the future for a period of time, what this would mean is that if we do the deal, we collect all revenues from those trade shows, including parking revenue, right? If we don't do the deal, those revenues are split out. I know that I also do think it's important to note, because it's been brought up by several people, around potential future parking for events that may occur around here. If we don't do a deal in the future, there is nothing that prevents them from striking some sort of arrangement to have event parking at this facility. And in that case, Brook Park would receive the revenues.
Right.
If we do the deal,
That's not the question, though,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. I get exactly what you're saying about the deal, right?
Yes.
What's concerning to me is the fact that you have this big elephant here
Yeah.
that's in the room that when we talk to Mrs. Shields over here, I'm under the presumption
Yes.
that she works for us. Does she work for them, or does she work for us?
no,
Who does she
Ms.
work
Shield
for?
works for us.
So she works for us,
Yes.
working through them to try to get this deal
Yes.
that you talked about earlier.
Yes.
Can they kill the deal?
So
Do they have the authority and the power to say what we want in here, what we don't want in here?
the affiliate that operates the IX Center is the group that controls leasing at the IX Center. Now, again, they are a group that owns and operates a lot of industrial buildings, that does a lot of leasing. They would love to have a high quality manufacturer. So we are in conversations with them as we talk about attracting companies.
How do we untangle from them? I mean, that's the
So-
deal. I mean, that's the sweet spot. Because right now, it sounds like, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
that we have another president at the table that we haven't seen.
So
That could have an impact on whatever we do here.
Through the chair to Councilman Jones, I would agree that it is complicated. This is a lease that we have inherited, and you could make one argument that you would love to see the city of Cleveland just be able to operate the building on its own and do with it exactly as it please. There are advantages to having a master lessee that are out there. For example, one of the things that we know, they have proposed a pretty substantial renovation of this entire building, right? To make it the type of facility that I think would really attract folks, like making substantial investments. that's not money that we would have to invest, right? Like, we have a master lease with this group. That rent is paid to the airport. Then they have private capital that they can invest in it, right? So, but the reality is that they have that lease, and therefore, you know, we need to work cooperatively with them to get the types of tenants that we all want to see.
Who are they?
Again, the affiliate, it's an affiliate of two entities, one of which ICP, they're Industrial Commercial Properties. The other group is IRG. I believe that is Industrial Realty Group. I can't say that for
Mr.
certain.
Chairman, can you break down who they are, the names of the people who runs these operations, these three groups you're
So
talking about?
the principal at IRG is a gentleman named Stu Lichter.
Yeah, can you put that in writing for me?
Yes.
I'd like to have in writing
Yes.
because now it's getting a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about a one deal. We're talking about maybe 2 or 3 parts within it.
So
Does that sound right? Am I extrapolating that from you correctly?
yes, and obviously they have made it clear that they would like to have a lease extension on this facility, and you know, I think that we are open to it under the right circumstances. Now, again, the lease that was set up originally with this, you know, they were able to buy out the rights to that lease. We had no say in it. It was not a very city-friendly lease, and so there is, and they have it for 13 more years. If there is one advantage of a lease extension, it gives us the ability to go in and clean up some of these things and make it a more fair and equitable lease.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request, if the committee is hearing this, I'd like to request the lease that, this 13-year lease that we're talking about, so I can have an idea of what that is. What are we actually dealing with that? And then the second request of information is who are the major players that's a part of this entire piece here, because that hinges on any success that we do here at the table right now, is being able to fundamentally understand who the players are, what the deal, what the agreement is already previously in play, and what are we fundamentally dealing with as a totality of understanding this deal as a whole. If
Understood.
that makes sense.
Through the chair to the councilman, I've been texting to get a copy of the lease. I'm told that the airport will get us a copy of the current lease and email it to you.
Yes.
We will make that available as soon as
I
possible.
appreciate that.
And I will, before we move on, I will just say through the chair to councilman, both of those entities individually and certainly together, they have a long track record of success in leasing in the industrial space. It's
Okay,
what-
so you like them? They're friendly, or
yes,
are they friendly?
we have a good relationship with them as we work through this. And again, they own and operate a lot of industrial buildings very successfully, not just in Northeast Ohio.
Have we thought, and then this is it, Mr. Chairman, have we thought, you know, in terms of the law department, how could we untangle there as well? Was any given thought there, or we just never really thought about it, or did we?
Through the chair to the councilman, we're doing this in stages, and so we will look at how to divorce ourselves or rearrange that agreement as well. But our first step is to make sure that we can take control of the property through this settlement agreement, and then I think that's the next step on how we maximize city control and city revenues. Let me say that. There may be a decision that maybe the city's not the best manager of a piece of property. Perhaps someone with industry experience is a better manager.
Correct.
I understand. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And just briefly, a prominent property that this group also manages and has turned around. If you're driving to Columbus at the Lodi exit on 71, there's a outlet mall that kind of fell on hard times, and they took over the outlet mall and turned it into like manufacturing and warehousing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So that's something just as you're driving to and from Columbus you might see. And then on the lease, just to make a brief analogy, like we were so confident that
Yes.
we were going to tear down the IX Center that we entered into a lease that basically gives all, to your question about their exclusive management of the building, we hedged our bet. And to make an analogy, it would say you purchase a home with a very high interest rate because you think you're going to flip it, you know, so
Yep.
and then you end up, something happens and you're not able to flip it, and now you're paying a mortgage with a really high interest rate because something fell apart, you know. That's we're trying to correct for. Basically, we made a gamble in the year 2000 and then demolishing this for the third runway, which would have gotten us out of all this entirely, just never came to pass. But thank you for your clarifying questions. Let's pivot back over to the land in Brook Park, because I know there's been a lot of questions about that.
Yes. So yes, and I know there have been a lot of questions on this area, and so again, I'll let Chief Griffin and Mr. Carr kind of talk a little bit more about it. But the real quick, right? These were the 34 acres that the city of Cleveland did acquire Once the runway plan is expansion, we were actually supposed to acquire all that land where you see the houses kind of heading westward. We did not. That led to the latest litigation. There were some questions around the FAA, but again, just to be clear, this is in Brook Park, not in the city of Cleveland. So we have no rights whatsoever to tax revenues or things that would come from this land. This is still firmly in Brook Park.
Is this the area where they tore all those houses down?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, it is. We acquired and tore down houses in zones 1 and 2, and then we were sued because we told them that we were not going to go forward with it any further, and we've been in litigation. I want to add on to Chief McNair's comments, which is not only do we not have any rights to any income off of those, but in fact, we are limited, we're prevented from doing anything with it other than for an airport purpose, which we no longer have. So we have essentially a liability of these 34 acres, which we can't do anything with. So the value to us, if we were going to build the runway, it would have value. We're not building the runway. So far from having value, it's a negative to us. And so this is an opportunity for, I think as people have used the metaphor accurately, it's a divorce. And one of the things that you get in a divorce is freedom, which is the freedom and risk to do well with the IX Center, but also to no longer be bound by these obligations in Brook Park as well. We did evaluate, we asked for an appraisal. We appraised it at about $4.3 million, but again, it's nothing that's usable to us. So I think this is a good deal. The other piece that I would say is it's a subject of litigation where the city of Brook Park claims that we're not maintaining the vacant land, we are an eyesore, and so not only is it a sort of a binding and hindrance to us, it costs us money.
Yeah. Mr. Carr?
Just a real quick update. As we're working through that settlement agreement, the Department of Port Control has been in contact with FAA. FAA has determined that a land release or a change in use request isn't required in order to transfer the property to the city of Brook Park. The only requirement that they have brought up to the airport is a potential navigation easement to ensure compatible land uses for future use of the property. But I think that's a significant step in moving this forward with the Federal Aviation Administration, that they're not requiring that, because that would be an additional process that we would have to go through, but they've foregone that requirement for us.
And then how does some of these things come together from a financial picture as it goes on there? And again, I know oftentimes we are looking for specifics. That is really hard to do because, as was mentioned earlier, while we're in conversations with a certain company, there's no guarantee that it lands. This is not a deal that we are looking over any one individual tenant. We're trying to make a deal that sets the city of Cleveland up for long-term success over here and long-term financial success. So, and I always say, it's like, if we look forward 30 years from now, how will people judge this? They will forget about the Emerald Corporate Park. They will forget about these lands where houses were in Brook Park. What we essentially did was we swapped land of what is NASA Glenn Research Center. It was in Cleveland, and we sent to Brook Park. And in return, we received the IX Center and surrounding properties that was in Brook Park and came to Cleveland. If you go back to 2001, NASA Glenn had roughly 3,000 employees, and they were paying $1.9 million in income taxes to the city of Cleveland. And if you look at today, they still have roughly 3,000 employees. They paid $3.5 million in income taxes to the city of Brook Park, right? Incomes rise over the course of time. If you look at our budget, income taxes are what drive a lot of the revenues to the city of Cleveland, right? And so what we have today is a facility for the last 40 years has been operated as a trade show space. That was pre-convention center downtown, right? And I am not disparaging the trade shows. I think they have a lot of value in a variety of levels around here, but I think that there is also a reality, financially speaking, to the city of Cleveland, it doesn't come in anywhere near the way a facility like this leased to high-quality industrial tenants and the income taxes they could pay to the city would. And so, again, if you look at what the IX Center produced in 2024, for the city of Cleveland, it was about $228,000. That's it for us, right? That $475,000 total that went on there. If you look at the peak of when trade shows were doing great pre-pandemic, the building generated about $1 million in revenue total, and that was about $520,000 that went to the city of Cleveland. And so what we've kind of come back to then is like, all right, if we're now making a play where we're collecting all revenues that come through here, whether or not ICP IRG wants to lease a portion of this facility to trade shows for a period of time, we would collect all revenues on that, which again, all revenues is better than part revenues, right? But I look at it more as like, what is the total payroll that we can put on any of these areas that we've accumulated? Whether that is developing, as we mentioned, just the Emerald Corporate Parkway. If we just develop those 40 acres around there in similar fashion to what was there now, that could easily generate $700,000 a year for the city of Cleveland. That would almost make like bringing on the IX Center free, right? Similarly, like what are the types of payrolls we could get either at Emerald Corporate Parkway or the IX Center? And so we went through a little bit of an exercise where we said, all right, additional payroll, right, 2.5% income tax that we would get. We factored in the $650,000 payment that we would have to make to Brook Park over the course of that time. And because, as Ms. Bordeaux-Small knows, and as we discussed earlier, part of the issue that we have here is we don't have the ability today to incentivize any companies to come into this facility because of that weird tax sharing, right? So we factored in some basic incentives around here, things like the job creation income tax credit, which gives 50% of income taxes back for 5 years. And we just started to look at total payrolls over that 33-year time period. If you just have $25 million of total payroll in this, right? Like we would make out plus $2.5-ish million on here. As was discussed today, there's a company that is looking at this right now that has a $70 million payroll just for a portion of the building, right? And so in that scenario, you're looking at $40+ million benefit to the city of Cleveland over the course of time. I keep trying to say this, like, is there risk in this deal? Sure, there is some risk in this deal, right? We're making a fixed $650,000 payment, and the one thing that we know that we would get out of that is the $300,000 in revenue that we're currently giving to Brook Park over at Emerald Corporate Parkway, right? So if Emerald Corporate Parkway sat vacant, if not a single trade show or business operated in the IX Center, we could lose upwards of $350,000 a year, right? But like those properties would have to sit vacant for like 30+ years. It doesn't take a lot if we are really focused on like, how do we bring businesses in here? How do we help make that here? It doesn't take much. And income taxes, like, again, we're making $650,000 flat pay. That's flat. $650,000 today, like $650,000 10 years from now will be worth less than it is today. Whereas income taxes will continue to rise over the course of time. That is why NASA went from $1.9 million in income taxes to $3.5 million in income taxes. So we are gaining an appreciative asset, right? And we're giving up a fixed payment. I know that there are some folks that would prefer that Brook Park get nothing out of this. Again, Brook Park has rights on these properties. They last into perpetuity. Unless we want to spend all the money up front, which we don't have lying around, to tear down this asset, what we're essentially doing is we are financing out, buying out Brook Park's tax sharing. There are 240 acres that are currently under tax sharing between these two municipalities. So if we're paying $21.45 million over the course of 33 years, and we're getting 240 acres back in total control, that comes down to about $89,000 an acre, right? Like, again, there is minimal risk in this. There will always be some risk. There is very high potential for reward. Again, this gets Brook Park out of Cleveland, Cleveland out of Brook Park, that the divorce gets finalized. It gives us the ability to bet on ourselves to fill these things. It gives us substantial upside. This is ending one of, again, doesn't matter what everyone thought was going to happen, the way it unraveled, we are taking down one of the worst deals in the city's history and creating a fair deal that gives us the opportunity to maximize this asset and put it back into circulation for the long-term future of the city of Cleveland.
Okay. I have a couple, and then we'll start going through our list.
And
Chief, yes.
I'm sorry, there was one other point that I wanted to add. Since the last time of our June 1st hearing, the city of Brook Park has passed legislation that would move this forward. And so essentially what we have in front of us is Brook Park has agreed to this. We have the ability through July 15th to come back and vote and do this deal that would abolish all tax sharing and allow us to begin to start to benefit out of this. But they have already acted on their end.
Okay. That was actually my first question, so thank you. Two quick questions or points of clarification. One is in reference to the land that Cleveland owns in Brook Park. My understanding is that it is currently zoned, Brook Park has an airport zoning code designation, and it is zoned for airport uses, and there's been questions about whether or not the land is developable. My understanding is whether or not the land is developable at this time, the land is only allowable for airport uses per the Brook Park zoning code. And in order for, in a world where Cleveland would want to see something developed there and accept that the revenues would go to Brook Park has the legal authority through its zoning code to basically block anything from happening on that land because it's zoned under their regulations, not ours. I just want to confirm that.
To the chair, yes, that's correct. It's
Okay.
also limited by the settlement agreement as well, that it can only be used for airport purposes. Part of this divorce would let Brook Park change its zoning. It's still going to be subject to the FAA, though. They can't put a 30-story building on there. They're still going to be limited by federal aviation regulations.
Okay, and so just to clarify, because I think that's what their point is, the FAA regulations, could somebody speak more to what FAA regulations theoretically could be? I know there's things relative to heights and, there's prohibitions against lights and residential uses because of the proximity to loud noises. So Mr. Carr, if you could speak to some of those FAA limitations on kind of the developability of the land we currently own in Brook Park.
Sure, absolutely. So the Federal Aviation Administration has a process called the 7460 process that looks at imaginary airspace surfaces. So anytime a project is going to be developed either on or near an airport, that project would go through that review process with the Federal Aviation Administration. So anything that's going to be developed on this property in the future, regardless of what that land use may be, would go through that process to ensure that there's height compatibility with our existing instrument approaches into the runways, as well as just the navigable airspace in and around the airport. That would be the primary item that the FAA would take a look at. They also look at photometrics, so anything that was producing a significant amount of light that may pose a visual impairment to a pilot on the approach or departure to a runway. That would also be studied as part of that 7460 process, in addition to electronic interference with aircraft or with radio communications between the air traffic control tower and the airport and aircraft in the air. So it's a multi-step process or multi-step evaluation that's done through the 7460 application. And all of those items would be evaluated by the Federal Aviation Administration for anything that's going to be developed there.
Thank you. So suffice to say, to the administration, a combination of the FAA process and the fact that the land is regulated by another municipality is why the determination is that these acres aren't a useful asset to the city of Cleveland, correct? Okay. My final question, so within, and this was stated in the terms of the deal, there's a $2 million settlement fee negotiated a one-time, and then the annualized payment. Can you clarify what the budgetary source for the one-time and then the annualized payments would be? Is that through port control? Is that elsewhere?
The $2 billion would come from the law department settlement funds. We litigated this case and won for about $53,000. It cost them for outside counsel about $2 million. We have won, but as part of the price for divorce, it will come out of the law department settlement funds. Going forward, the $650 a year will come out of port control, as I understand it.
Okay, so as follow-up questions,
And actually, let me rephrase that a little bit, which is there is established a independent fund which will take the revenues that are being paid by the lessees, the corporations that are in there, that will first go into that fund to fund the $650 a year payment.
okay. So as follow-up, for all intents and purposes, the annualized payment being part of the port control budget, that is not general fund, that is basically airport users who are flying in and out of Hopkins and airline are
It's a special revenue fund, but we don't expect there to be we don't expect the $650 a year to be coming out of the general fund.
Yeah.
it's seeded from port control's budget essentially.
I'm not exactly sure what the financial that arrangement is, but so for example, the parking and the lease revenues would go into the special fund, and then that fund would be used to pay the $650 a year.
So, and I want, through the chair too, commonplace when we do things like a joint economic development zone agreement, the finance department will set up a special revenue fund for it, right? Because those taxes come in, whether it be income, property, whatever it is, and it kind of goes in as like a holding tank, and then they pay out those portions to other municipalities. That is how it currently works with Emerald Corporate Park, right? Those dollars come in, goes into a special revenue account, they then pay Brook Park out of there. And so in essence, there is going to be a special revenue account. And I do believe that that number is listed in the legislation that sits there, that special revenue account, of which all tax revenues will come in there. That is where the $650,000 will be paid out of. Rent for this facility, my understanding, gets paid to the airport, since the airport technically owns the building. Is that accurate, Scott?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To the IX Center.
The IX Center. Okay, so that goes to the airport. The rent for the IX Center goes to the airport. The tax revenues go to the city of Cleveland.
Okay, so explain why we go to the.
Is there a list going on? Yeah, I'll allow it, but then we'll get you're next on the list.
Yeah.
But let me just ask one more clarifying question, then I'll kick it right back over to you. And if you don't have this, if you could provide this to us, we budgeted in the Department of Law's budget $5.5 million for judgments, damages, and claims. My assumption is that the $2 million comes out of that budget. Do we have a year-to-date total of how we are compared to that budget line?
I can get that to you.
Okay.
I think we're at about $1 million.
Okay, so
It'll be tight this year, but I'm cheap. We don't settle cases, and we aggressively defend the city. I think last year we returned about $2 million in our settlement. It'll be tight this year.
okay, if you could provide that to staff, I will kick it over to Councilman Jones, Polensek, Gray for 10 minutes.
Well, we started with trying to figure out why the airport is collecting rent from the IX Center. And how much is that rent?
Mr. Carr, do you want to answer that?
Through the chair to the council member, the annual rent, I believe, is roughly $2.7 million.
$2.7 million
I
for
believe.
rent? Okay.
But I'll clarify that number and send that to staff.
Okay. So why are we sending it to the airport? Why would the airport be collecting rent?
So the IX Center was originally purchased, that $66.5 million was purchased with airport funds through our airline partners. And so that's why the rent accrues to the Department of Port Control.
So those are the funds that we usually did. We did in the deal in 1999, Mr. Chairman, for clarification.
Can you repeat the question?
The funds that we purchased the facility, was those funds coming from the airport?
Yes. To my knowledge, that is correct.
And because the facility exists within the city of Cleveland, tax revenues come to the city of Cleveland. But because the airline/airport bought the facility, rent for the facility goes back to them so that they can pay down their bonds.
I see. So the city at any time could come in and pay off the airport and then start collecting the rents, correct?
I think that would be a more in-depth discussion that we would need to have. You know, is that possible? Anything's possible, but I think that would be a different discussion that we've had than to date.
Well, when the concept was initially brought to us in 1999, they didn't tell us at the table. It's something like Mike Polinsky is talking about now, where those revenues, where the bulk of the money came from. We had no idea that it came from the airport. And then it also raises other questions too, in my mind, in terms of how we utilize our subsidiaries, and the reason why we have subsidiary operations to be different from other operations is the reason why all those processes were put in play. So I have a number of questions just off of that alone, in terms of you know, what those rules and regulations were meant for initially.
So through the chair to Councilman Jones, first and foremost, I want to say, again, what we're talking about today, irregardless of any of those conversations, is eliminating these tax sharing deals so that Cleveland begins collecting revenues on there. I do also think it is important to say out loud that there's been a lot of conversations I've heard, both internally and in this body, around the challenges of a landlocked airport and not having land. And so I think that keeping the airport in control of the asset makes for long term, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so that as they control that asset, again, you never know 30 years from now where we may be.
Yeah. I don't want to belabor the point,
Yes.
but the point is that there's so many parts and pieces. Like, as the more I'm starting at, or we're asking questions, the more we're finding out stuff that we didn't know about. So this is one of those things that, you know, we just didn't know about. So if you know, and it's one of the things when you heard me sitting at the other end of the table when we were talking about the subject matter, was having a projection, knowing exactly, you know, is it a sweet deal, is it a good deal, or whatever it is, you got the projections in place. So even though we have these numbers here that you have broken down here, do you have a spreadsheet that gives me an outline that lets me know how we look with this particular deal, you know, within 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? And I, Mr. Chairman, asked for that projection breakdown. Do we have that projection breakdown? We should.
So
We already have all the numbers here. All we have to do is put it on
through the chair to Councilman Jones, we did share with your staff kind of some of the income tax projections that we had put in place for this. I think that they have also kind of broken down. Again, part of the issue is that, like, we don't know who future tenants are.
No, I
right?
get
Are there
that.
trade shows? Are they not? So it's all projections.
No.
Of what is
What I'm
possible.
asking for, Mr. Chairman, is what you're giving to us
Yes,
now, right?
yes,
You're projecting.
Yes,
Right? That's
correct.
what you're doing even right now, is
Correct.
projecting.
Correct.
But you do have some concrete numbers that you have that will be in front of us,
Yes.
will not change no
Yes.
matter what. So the issue is, what I'd ask for is projections to understand what, once this deal is done, do we know we have a good deal? That's just a matter of just business bringing it in front of me to see if it's a good deal. We've had an agreement with Brook Park. It seems like they know it's a good deal, apparently for them, because they've already passed and signed off on it. Yet we don't even have their agreement in front of us, the legal document. Nor do we have the legal document of the actual deal, you know, at all in front of us. Did we send that? I requested that too.
We've provided a complete copy of the settlement agreement.
Okay, so,
yes,
and that's the one that was passed by Brook Park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we agreed to it first, and then we jointly submitted both to this council and to their council. We did it on Monday, they did it on the next Tuesday.
You talking about last Monday?
No, it was last month. It was
Last month. Do we have that agreement?
That was part of the original
we get that agreement?
submission of legislation.
Because it's not a part of what we have in our books right now that's in front of us.
Okay, well, I'll make sure that you get that.
And Councilman, to your point of the kind of the projections, what's in front of you and also on the tablet that our staff prepared, this IX Center deal does have a bit of a breakdown of showing kind of
You're
revenues
talking about the new
generated.
piece I just got today?
Correct, yeah, that was prepared by our policy staff to kind of run through the numbers of the current scenario and then the legislation's scenario. So that may speak to some of your questions about trying to understand the economics of one option versus another.
So, and I did want to say through the chair to Councilman Jones too, in my professional opinion, again, what we've done is try to create a fair deal, right? Ultimately, you know, you can look at projections on here, and they're just that, they're projections. But like all these things around the incomes that we could generate in both Corporate Parkway and, in my professional opinion, won't be able to happen unless we pass this legislation. Otherwise, all we're looking at, and again, we gave up an asset that was at the time generating $1.9 million in revenue for the city of Cleveland, now generates $3.5 million in revenue for Brook Park. And in return, we received an asset that produced $228,000 in revenue for the city of Cleveland last year, right? And so to get to the point that we can start collecting real income taxes, we need to eliminate the tax sharing.
No, I agree with your argument, right? So just make sure we're on the same page.
Yes,
that the issue is how the presentation is made, right? So we spend an enormous time sitting here at the table trying to go through the numbers that you had given to us a couple of weeks ago. And there was questions that I had asked, and it's just simple business projections, you know, a breakdown on what all of these deals would mean, how we would move forward. And then, you know, of course, Mrs. Bridges talked about the possibility of bringing in, you know, two businesses, one that would give us, one of the reasons why it seems like we're urgent sitting here, that it apparently appears that we have a deal on the table. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Bridges?
Through the chair to the councilman, we do not have a deal on the table, right? We have no LOU or LOI signed, but we have several businesses and that would fit extremely well here that we would get revenue from in 6 months versus 12 months to 2 years with, you know, some of the other sites where we have to clean and build. That's a huge selling point. So to be clear, we did do projections for those types of businesses, and Scott and I also worked on MROs.
I see. So we don't have those projections here, though. And see, that helps us here. And nor do we have the projections of the actual deal. So we have the ideal and the concepts of what we will get potentially based off the current numbers, but we don't have any financial projections in front of us that really show us, you know, a real clean pathway on the getting to the yes quicker and faster. So as I'm going through this, it's like going through a tough thicket. You have to cut it down here, cut it there before you can get your big equipment in. So I'm trying to figure it all out here sitting at the table. So it'd be great to see those projections. But what you're sharing with us is the possibility. You're not saying you have anything concrete at all whatsoever. And so I get that, but it doesn't help us sitting here at the table when you've clearly stated that, yeah, it's a possibility, but we don't know, it quite won't happen. You know what I mean? So I don't know what I'm dealing with when I'm talking to you. As you sit here, as it relates to, is this real? Is this something I can touch and feel and it's going to actually happen? Or are you just giving us hope?
Through the chair, I just want to also point out that, you know, I've been at the city now for 3 years, and from the beginning, we've been talking about how we have been reactive. And as a city, we need to be proactive to be able to set ourselves up for success and, you know, bring businesses to the city. And a lot of that is going to look like this, right? Work where there might not be an end user, but we need to set ourselves up for success. And I think that that's exactly what this is, right? We know with all the, you know, I think Chief talks about when he started, there was one 15-acre site, right, ready for development, and we have now continued to grow that. And this site is ready today, right? We don't need to do, you know, new construction. There's no cleanup needed, right? Like, this is ready, and we have a real person here building our pipeline to bring businesses to this site. So I think that's really the approach, right, and the way that we're thinking about this.
And thank you, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just so that you can understand, I'm not against the deal. It's how you brought the deal. You see what I'm saying? So it's how you painted the picture. So it's taking me longer to see your picture. So when you can make it really simple for a person like me, you got the projections, I see the numbers, it's a no-brainer. Right now, I'm still jumping through the math and trying to see if the math makes sense. And so now that we even have some other numbers I'm looking at, and then the hope that you brought in, which is good, but at the same time, there's no deal. The issue is when if we could bring the picture of projections, and this is something that I haven't said once, and it's not even about this deal. It's about all the deals we bring before the council. You know, this is a business. We're running it as a business. So then the proposition is bring me the business concept here as well. Just don't give me the terminology, but give me the outline. Our staff shouldn't have had to try to break through this and bring their own paper to try to make us understand your deal. The best thing is for us to understand the deal is to actually fundamentally understand what we're going to be making. You know, so after this deal is done and we say yes at this table, it shows me that we got 5 or 6 million, you know, in the coffers after this, and it pays for itself. What we do here is paying for itself, and it's doing just as you're saying, Director, is putting us in a position so that we can grow as a city. So I'm not opposed to the deal, so I just want you to be clear, it's how the presentation has been presented in terms of projection of the numbers. And so if you can project those numbers out, Director, your argument has sold me. It's just making sure that I can see those numbers and those projections. And then just how real Mrs. Bridges' comments and statements are in terms of really bringing something viable here to the city of Cleveland within a year or two. And I'm not sure if that will happen or not. And how long, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Bridges, have you been working on this project? Ms. Shields, I'm sorry. Forgive me, Ms. Shields.
It's okay. It's okay. So through the council to the chair. So I have been working on this particular deal since December. And so I saw and got us through 7 other cities and got us down to 1 of 2. And that took real strategy and aggressiveness, I'll say, to get them to come to Cleveland, to view Cleveland. And we would not have even known this deal existed if we did not have the IX. We are missing out on deals that we don't even know about because we're not ready. This is the only site, or only building that is ready to go for a manufacturer right now.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. As I turn it over to Councilman Polensek, I'll just note for the committee, staff added to the tablet as it's file 664, the A file, is the actual negotiated settlement agreement between Brook Park and Cleveland as negotiated. So if you want to do some casual scrolling, it is there for your reference. And I will turn it over to Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to the administration. I'm appreciative for the people who are trying to strike what you've alleged at the table is a fair deal. My concern is this: I have such a bad taste in my mouth over the Browns deal, and that's having a big impact on me. And that will be the worst deal ever made in the history of the city of Cleveland. I believe it is the worst deal ever made, and we're seeing it play out in front of our very eyes now. So as we talk about dealing with Brook Park, that has what has influenced me greatly in the whole course of this discussion. In negotiations, do we have to be fair and equitable? Of course we do. We always like to be on the winning side, but when we're dealing with other municipalities, we want to be fair, and with any agreement or arrangement we enter into. So we are going to pay over the 33-year period, we're going to pay Brook Park $23,450,000, okay? And I need to know definitively, Mr. Chairman, to the law director and to the team here, exactly where those funds, so there's no dispute, no question, as to where those funds are coming from. I'll make that officially, that request through the chair and to staff. We need to know exactly where those funds will be coming from over the 33-year period. The 34 acres that is a part of the deal, the law director mentioned it's been appraised at $4.3 million. Who did the appraisal? Mr. Chairman, to the director.
I have it here. Give me a moment.
Okay. So as the law director is looking for, who did the appraisal for the 34 acres, and it's been indicated at the table that Brook Park controls the zoning, and we know from our own legislative body, we can change the zoning. That's a legal fact and a historical fact. So based on that fact, that they can change the zoning to whatever they want, they may be restricted or they are restricted by height restrictions. But that is 34 acres that they could develop for their city and in essence to compete against our city. And as Councilman Casey, I believe, pointed out a very important fact, that Brook Park is the only city that would not sign a poaching agreement, an anti-poaching agreement with the city. Director, is that correct?
Through the chair, that is, they did not sign a poaching agreement, anti-poaching agreement. I believe there may be one other municipality or village that did not.
So, in the course of this agreement, did anyone inject into the negotiations the fact that we would like them to sign an anti-poaching agreement so they don't attempt to take businesses from the city of Cleveland?
That was briefly discussed, but I don't think it was a major point because that was a dead end. But I do have the appraisal report, and I'm happy to give you a copy. It's it was prepared for OR Associates by Emily L. Brayman, MAI, SRA, and AI-GRS.
Yeah, could probably provide that through
Yeah,
the chair
absolutely.
and staff. But again, there are 34 acres adjacent to the airport, a part of this deal, that we are going to give to Brook Park, and they will not agree to an anti-poaching agreement. Therefore, they could attempt to take jobs out of the city of Cleveland, which concerns me greatly. So I'm going to put that on the table. The other issue is, has been pointed out, I believe, in page 8, the revenue we receive and that Brook Park receives. Has there been any calculation over the 33-year period to exactly what we will be receiving? And now we know things can change and we have no crystal ball. But do we have any idea that we come even remotely close to the $23 million we're paying them?
So
The revenue received?
through the chair to Councilman Polensek, that is when you see the potential future revenue slide on there, that takes into account, and again, we're trying to look at a wide variety of
Yeah.
scenarios that exist here, but that does take into account, that is over the course of 33 years, that includes a $650,000 annualized payment to Brook Park, and it includes a variety of kind of entry-level incentives that we may give to companies over the course of time.
Okay,
So-
but I'm going to request through the chair, because it still has to go on to
Yeah.
finance, if the administration could put together a rough estimate as to what we would possibly collect in this deal over that 33-year period. Again, we understand we have to be fair. I mean, we all like to win. I can't stand losing, quite frankly. It's just my genetic makeup. I can't stand, but in the case of negotiations with another municipality, we want to be fair. We want to be equitable, as we would hope that they would look upon us as being fair and equitable. And so I'm very much aware of the situations that we were presented with years ago in the course of negotiations, what we were confronted with from the standpoint with the airlines, the fact that this was a hub, the Continental hub was out there, and I can, brings back a lot of bad memories of this whole discussion over this whole original deal, and the situation that the White administration found itself in, and then ultimately the council. But nobody had a crystal ball back then. So here we are today, 2026. The 34 acres, and no anti-poaching agreement concerns me, Mr. Chairman. The fact of the matter, again, is that we've heard at the table from Ms. Shields that she is negotiating with the outside undisclosed company for 500,000 square feet for the existing building. We have no idea who that is. We hope that, unlike the previous agreement presented to council, which was the stealth occupant, which nobody could tell us who or what was going in there. But here's my question to you, Ms. Shields, if you can answer. Of the remaining 1.5 million square feet, are you aware of the Haslam Group negotiating for the remainder of the 1.5 million square feet with the person, with the entity that represents, that has the lease on the building?
I'm not aware
You're not aware?
of that.
For the record, we're at the table here. I want to ask the question again. Are you aware of any effort by the Haslam Group to lease, sublease about a little over 1 million square feet of that building from the present tenant, the person that we leased the building to?
So through the chair to Councilman Polensek, I will ask that. I think it has come out over the last couple of weeks and has been stated publicly that Haslam Sports Group has approached the entity that controls the IX Center lease. They have proposed leasing for a period of time. I have not verified what that period of time is, whether it's 2 or 3 years, in an effort to keep the trade shows in place for a period of time.
Okay. So, you've indicated earlier that we have no control and there's no sign-off at all.
That's correct.
Okay. So, here's my concern. In light of how we got jammed down here on the lakefront, and we got the upper and the lower radiator hose down here, okay? You know what he's attempting to do.
Yes.
He's attempting to corral the trade shows for 3 years and then move the trade shows into his new facility and then compete directly against the Huntington Convention Center, Public Auditorium, and Rocket Fieldhouse, or whatever it's called now, Rocket Arena. And so, I mean, I'm going to be very cautious on whatever I vote for, because I am not about to help this man who has screwed the city of Cleveland. Okay?
Through the chair, Councilman Polensek, I want to say that, one, we have no say in whether or not the master lessee leases to the trade shows or not. I think what is in front of us is the elimination of tax sharing. And so I think that if that affiliate agrees to lease to them, we're in a situation wherein either the city of Cleveland could take on the revenues for those shows, or those revenues would be split between Cleveland and Brook Park. Okay. And the one thing that I will add to that is that we have made it clear to the operator who is looking for an extended lease on that. Our priority is, and this is not a knock on the trade shows, which I do think provide value to the region in a multitude of ways, yes. Right? And some of them I think would be great at the Downtown Convention Center, yes. Some of which probably don't make sense at the Downtown Convention Center, right? But what we've made it clear to the affiliate is our priority is attracting high-quality manufacturing jobs to the city of Cleveland. If there is a way for them to do both, that is not our decision. But you know, ultimately, again, we are working very hard to attract high-quality manufacturers here, okay. And they know that.
And I appreciate that. And who actually negotiated this agreement?
This particular agreement? So through the chair to Councilman Polensek, the settlement agreement was Portion's Mayor Bibb, myself, Chief Griffin was involved in that as well, and then various staff members from Port Control Law as necessary. But the primary folks in the room were the mayor, myself, and Chief Griffin.
I hope this wasn't over 2 Cokes, let me tell you.
There was no Coke involved.
Right. Because we know we wound up with the 2 Cokes. So, Mr. Chairman, to my honorable colleagues and to Tom, I think you're a very competent guy. But you touched on it earlier. We have been, I don't like losing. We're losing the jail. We're losing 18 schools. We're attempting to lose Burke Airport. We seem to be on the losing end here, and I don't like losing. That's just my nature. I want to make sure that we don't lose on this deal and that it's a fair deal for the city of Cleveland, the people of the city of Cleveland. So again, Mr. Chairman, that anti-poaching agreement provision to me is very important because they're taking our football team and they're taking the revenue associated with that football team. And then again, I don't want to be in a situation where then they poach against us for the 34 acres to take additional businesses out of the city of Cleveland. I want fairness. I want equity. That's my position. And so I'm hoping that in the course of this process here, that we can impress upon Brook Park, if they really want to be good neighbors, then they can't poach us. They can't take our businesses out of the city of Cleveland. I think that's not too much to ask for. I think it's fair. It's fair. I want a fair deal for our people. I want a fair deal for the city of Cleveland. And there'll be no way in God's green earth that I'll vote for an extension on that IX Center if Haslam gets a 1.5 million of it, square feet, so he can directly compete against entities in the city of Cleveland. That would be outrageous. And to tear down the IX Center would be criminal. Would be criminal. You couldn't even, nobody could build that place. It'd be $1 billion plus to build that place today. Maybe $2 billion. So we know it's there. It's not going anywhere, thank goodness. We got to cut the best deal. And I would hope to the administration that you would raise the issue about the anti-poaching. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gray is next.
Chair, I think my question I want to ask have already been answered between my 2 colleagues here who graciously had their say, but I just want to reiterate what Chief McNair spoke on the revenue. I wasn't here back then through that day. I just want to clarify that you said NASA Glenn versus IX Center today. Now, back in between 2018 and 2024, who received that revenue? Was it the airport or was it a city general fund? I just want to clarify on that.
So
Chair to the chief.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Gray, yes. So rent for the building goes to the airport because the airport/airlines paid for the building. Tax revenues that come in because it's in Cleveland municipality, right, come to the city of Cleveland general fund. So, again, now we split those revenues in that really weird, complicated formula with Brook Park. Right, and so that's where you can see that's why I only list the revenues in there as the tax revenues. I don't list rent.
You didn't list what?
I don't list rent.
Okay, you didn't list rent.
Because rent is I don't consider that revenue for the city. That is revenue for the airport to offset costs of buying the property.
Okay, so the tax revenue came to the city of Cleveland into the general fund
And to the city of Brook Park.
and the city of Brook Park,
Right,
so that
both.
was split.
Yes.
Okay, so when it went into the general fund, chair to the chief, and it was used for the general fund, is there some type of data, a history to show what that money was used for when it came into the city of Cleveland? Councils, who was back then? Did y'all ever
General fund.
receive any, like,
Through the
no,
chair,
you-
Councilwoman Gray, my understanding of this, right, is that those are revenues that go into the the general fund, and then
and
they
was
are
used-
allocated as, yes.
For everything.
For everything, okay, all right.
And that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to increase more revenues to
Okay.
come into the city of Cleveland.
Used
So that
for
in the city of
everything.
infinite need and limited resources, right, we have more resources to apply to those needs.
Okay, so, Chair, to the Law Department, is there any way that, since that's public record, is there any way that that can be known from the revenue from the IX Center and it went to the general fund, what it was allocated to in different programs? I know that's a big ask. I
through-
wasn't there during that time, but since I'm now here and this can of worms have been opened up, that is a curious question, Chair, to the Law Director.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, once the funds go into the general fund, they get commingled with everything. So to kind of figure out where those monies went to, you would basically apply the percentages from the general fund to those income pieces. That would be the best. There's no clear one-to-one.
Okay.
You'd have to sort of estimate based upon how the general fund is allocated.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll take that one.
All right.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And to the listening audience, just to give kind of a scope of like cost of the city, like $228,000 into the general fund may get you one or two streets resurfaced. So it's a pretty, it's not a, look, given the scale of our budget, it's not making a huge impact to our budget. It's worth finding ways to increase it through any means necessary. All right, thank you for keeping your time. I'll kick it over to Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to Director McNair, we sat down last week, and I appreciate that, and we went over this, and there were two things that I was very specific about when we met. One was that I didn't trust the administration in light of the history that they've had with negotiating deals. And two is that I have no desire whatsoever to be a part of helping the city of Brook Park and or HSG and or Jimmy or D. Haslam in the development of any of the issues or problems that they're having with their new development out there. I personally still believe that that 34 acres is going to help them resolve their biggest problem that they have over there in their parking issue. And then to hear today that it was yourself, that was Director Griffin and the mayor that actually sat down and negotiated the deal makes it even a bigger red flag for me to be very supportive of this, especially in light of when we sat down, there was no talk of the possibility of the Haslam Sports Group leasing the IX Center for 3 years, specifically to keep the big trade shows there only for 3 years, and that revenue, be it whatever, portion of that comes back to the city of Cleveland with the trade shows. And nobody has ever done a secondary economic study on the trade shows, like if somebody goes there from the city of Cleveland to the Home and Garden Show and purchases something there and invests in their home, right, just to stay in the city of Cleveland. So nobody's ever done a secondary economic development study of how those big shows help the city of Cleveland, even if a Clevelander buys a boat and there's docking fees, whatever, right? Only to know that the HSG could potentially be involved in that 3 year to eventually in 3 years completely take all of that away from the city of Cleveland just doesn't sit well with me at all. Especially knowing that he doesn't want them to come downtown to establish themselves downtown, because if we could get those trade shows downtown, then, and they're established for 3 years, they're not going to just pick up then and leave again, right? People become creatures of habit. So we know that it works out there if those trade shows occur. If he wants them, right, eventually in his facility, then the city of Cleveland is 100% completely out of whatever that economic development is, whatever those trade shows bring into the city of Cleveland. In 3 years, under the auspice of him being involved in it, then we're completely 100% shut out. That there doesn't sit well with me at all. So by the time this deal is done, the city of Cleveland would have paid roughly $90 million for the IX Center, with the original $66 million, the other $23 million that we're putting into it over the next whatever amount of years. You're looking at roughly $90 million for the IX Center, which we will never, I don't care who comes in to lease it, at least not in our lifetimes, we'll never break even on the IX Center from all the investment, the bad deals, whatever it was, the situation that we're in. Do we know how many years are left on the sale bonds, Mr. Chairman, to the director, of the original 66 million purchased? And if the rent, when those bonds are paid off, does the rent then come to the city of Cleveland's general fund, or will it still continue to go to the Port Authority?
Whoever would like to answer the question.
Yes, I actually do have that information if you give me just 1 second. So my understanding, where is, sorry, a lot of files here. I believe it's 2033. I got it in here somewhere.
Okay, so either way, we'll say it's 2033, knowing that it's probably give or take a couple of years.
Yeah.
Does the rent then, Mr. Chairman, to the director or to whomever can answer, does that rent then come to the city of Cleveland's general fund, or does it stay with the port?
Through the chair to the councilman, my understanding, and Scott can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the purchase and the bonds come out of the airport funds, as similarly, so would the rent payments. So the city as a whole paid the amounts that you indicated, but it was the airlines and the airports who had paid for that.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. When those bonds are paid off, right, does the rent then still go to the port, or at that point, I understand paying the bonds off through the rent.
It's
but
an
at
airport asset.
But at that point, then, the $2 million or whatever it is in rent, and we know rent only goes up, that'll never come to the general fund then?
That is correct.
Or that always stays?
The rent will continue to accrue to the Department of Port Control
Okay.
because it is an airport asset.
Okay, and then Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You're
And then Mr. Chairman, to the director, you had indicated in some of your comments earlier about if we negotiate somebody coming to the IX Center or one of the trade shows, that some of that money then comes to the city as opposed to whoever's the who is it, IRG? IRG. Mr. Chairman, to the director, then the question is, why do we need IRG if we're out there, and we have Ms. Shields, and I've never met her, but I'm pretty impressed by what I'm hearing from the table. Yeah. Why do we need IRG out there if we're out there actively selling the IX Center ourselves? And is there a difference? If she brings somebody into the IX Center, that IRG ultimately has the say yes or no over, right? Explain IRG's role in this thing, and then why do we need him if we have somebody like this?
So, through the chair to Councilman Casey, in essence, yes, IRG, ICP, their affiliate that operates it, right? They are the ones who issue a lease within this, and so they would have to agree to any tenant that we found. Ms. Scheel, who has been a tremendous asset, so she originally came here as a Fuse Executive Fellow who helped us set up our business development practice within the Department of Economic Development, and then we were fortunate enough to bring her on full-time to start executing that work. And so she has a broad-based strategy that is looking at the city of Cleveland whole and how we bring these in. Now, her subject matter expertise from her professional career is aerospace and defense, and so companies that are looking around NASA, like that is a wheelhouse for her. So she's looking for the city as a whole. I think what she has experienced is that there's tremendous amount of interest in this facility for a lot of the reasons that have been mentioned today. But ultimately, anyone that she may find that brings to the table, or may come in from anywhere else if they want to go in that building, needs a lease from ICP IRG. Now, there is a reality that was a lease that we inherited. that we work with. And as I said before, and I will remove that group specifically from this, I think that there are, and we've looked at this throughout the country, there are pros and cons to having a master lessee operate a facility for you, whether you're a municipality or just a private property owner, right? On one hand, sure, it would be great if the city of Cleveland had carte blanche say, this is the tenant we want, and we are going to put them in here, and we can do whatever deal we want to get that done. And at the same time, as I mentioned, when you have a master lessee, and things, one of the reasons they want a lease extension is because they want to make a significant investment in this building, right? They want to fully transition it to the type of manufacturing facility with facade improvements, new lobbies, it's a pretty dated structure. That's capital we wouldn't have to expend, right? They're paying us a fixed rent fee for the asset, and then, they can invest capital in that. They are obviously incentivized to get a high-quality tenant that can pay them better rent. Now, again, if the other municipality is out of the deal, if we think it's a great tenant, we want them there, we now have the ability to incentivize and get them in. So, again, it's the structure we inherited, right? Ideally,
all right.
you'd make that decision yourself.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, to the director, I'm just because I'm running out of time. How long has, you said they want an extension. How long have they been operating the IX Center?
Through the chair, Councilman Casey, I believe since 2021, or no, 2019.
29.
Yeah, during COVID.
Okay, 2021.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in those 5 years,
Yes.
right, how many businesses have they brought in?
So through the chair to Councilman Casey, my experience of the last 3 years is that they have been continuing to operate trade shows. They have been looking at redeveloping it as an industrial asset, which frankly
Okay,
is
so
what
I'll
led to
take
this
that as the
conversation.
answer as being zero. They brought none in, right?
Correct.
I'm just saying. And we know that they want out of the trade show because they've publicly stated that, I guess, unless, of course, a billionaire comes to them and says, I can lease it to you for 3 years. Do we have the ability to say no if they want to bring a tenant in?
Through the chair, Councilman Casey, no. As long as it's a tenant that meets with the general industry zoning requirement, they could sign any lease that they so choose.
And we have no say-so in it.
That is
And
correct.
it'll be like that as long as they're operating, correct?
That
And
is
even
the
if we
current
bring-
lease arrangement.
And even if we bring a manufacturer in, they can't. They could still say no, right?
Through the chair,
Correct.
Councilman Casey, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop, did you have any questions? Okay. Are there any other questions from the committee? If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. Yes.
I'm still thinking. Can you go to the next name?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Thank you. Normally we'd go to miscellaneous, but it's been a long morning. So with that, thank you to my colleagues for making time over summer recess to come in on this piece, and I will adjourn this meeting of Transportation Mobility.
Appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.
This is going.